told by agents in the field yesterday and this morning is the system right now simply cannot handle the overwhelming number of Central American immigrants flooding the border, especially families. 7,000 apprehended last November, 25,000 apprehended last month. And because of that, the Border Patrol and ICE are forced to shift migrants from place to place or simply drop them off at a bus station like this one in El Paso. More than 400 released Sunday and Monday because, again, there's nowhere to put them. The case of this 8-year-old Felipe Alonso Gomez, I'm told, illustrates the problem. According to CBP, here's the timeline. Agents apprehended this boy and his father near El Paso last Tuesday, December 18th. They were processed, given food and water. 2 days later, December 20th, they were transferred to El Paso. Then, 3 days later, because of overcrowding, they were transferred again to the Alamogordo station. A day later, December 24th, an agent noticed the boy looked sick and took him to the local hospital. He was admitted around 9 a.m., got Tylenol, an antibiotic, and ibuprofen, then released around 2 p.m. Agents took the boy to a highway checkpoint holding cell. 4 hours later, he began vomiting. They returned to the hospital around 10 p.m. He lost consciousness during transport and then was pronounced dead just shy of midnight on Christmas Eve. Now, CBP says the agents checked the boy's welfare more than 24 times over roughly a week. Champion Regional Medical Center is also going to come under scrutiny, of course, for releasing this boy, reportedly with a fever of 103. Now, this trip from Guatemala to the U.S. likely took the father and son several weeks. We're also told it is likely the two camped just south of the El Paso fence for several days in wet, freezing weather. Now, the funeral of Gomez follows that earlier this month of 7-year-old Jacqueline McKean, who also died in Border Patrol custody. Both ICE and Border Patrol say they have mandates to hold people who cross illegally, but then also court orders to release them in a number of days, whether there is shelter space or not. Every child right now in CBP custody is going to receive a medical checkup if they're under 10 years old, and the agency, Rick, has asked for medical help from the Coast Guard, the DOD, and FEMA to get that done.
Mullen boy, apprehended by U.S. Customs and Border Protection, died in custody early Christmas morning. The Border Patrol said the child showed symptoms of a possible illness on Christmas Eve and was moved to a hospital in New Mexico. Doctors found a fever and said the child had a common cold. He was released Monday afternoon, but later Monday, the child exhibited nausea and vomiting and returned to the hospital. He died there early. The second migrant child to die this month while in U.S. custody. 7-year-old Jacqueline Cal, also from Guatemala, died earlier this month at a hospital in Texas.
To protect children in U.S. custody after the death of an 8-year-old Guatemalan boy. Felipe Gomez Alonso died just before midnight on Christmas Eve. He is the second migrant child to die this month after being detained near the border.
Shamlian is in Alamogordo, New Mexico, at the hospital where this latest boy died. Janet, good morning.
Good morning to you. This is the hospital where Felipe was treated and ultimately died late on Christmas Eve. He'd arrived in the United States about a week earlier with his father, reportedly in good health, before being taken into U.S. custody. So what happened here? Well, this morning we have new information on a death. Some are calling it outrage.
Border Protection now reports that at about 9 o'clock Christmas Eve morning, detention center agents noticed 8-year-old Felipe Gomez Alonso coughing and appeared to have glossy eyes. By 12:45, he was at the hospital, diagnosed and treated for a common cold. At 1:20, he registered a 103-degree fever, but by 2:50, he and his father were released from the ER and transferred to another checkpoint with a prescription for an antibiotic and ibuprofen. Officials say the pair received several welfare checks there. He appeared to be nauseous and vomited, but his father declined further medical assistance. 3 hours later, authorities say Felipe was lethargic and nauseous again, and agents sent him back to the hospital as there was no EMT on duty. On the way, he lost consciousness, could not be revived, and was pronounced dead at 11:48 p.m. Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke spoke yesterday about the child's death.
I'm going to call for an investigation just to get to the facts, make sure we understand what happened, and to prevent something like that from happening again.
As of this morning, the agency has ordered new wellness checks on every child currently in its custody, with an emphasis on those under the age of 10.